Did you know that in Attila Total War, you can give your allies instructions of where to attack on the campaign map? So it's in the diplomacy section, and there's this small button. I've played Attila Total War for a few years, and it took me a very long time to figure this out, and you can select a settlement for your allies or vassals to go and attack for you. And this is a really interesting mechanic, and I'm happy it's here. Total War needs more stuff like this. Now, does it work perfectly? Not really. You know, there's ways to, of course, abuse this mechanic, and it doesn't always even work. Sometimes the AI just doesn't bother. But still, the fact that it's here took me a while to figure out, and yeah, all of a sudden playing as someone like the Sassanid Empire, where you got a lot of vassals at the start, it's all of a sudden a different campaign, and I wish I knew this before I did my Sassanid Empire campaign. Now, some of these you're gonna know. You may know all of these, and that's good for you, and you know, but a lot of people don't. This is just stuff that I wish I knew earlier. I'm not saying this is stuff that you do not know. I'm never gonna say that in this video. This is just stuff that took me a very long time to figure out, but I did figure out, and so maybe many of you have figured it out as well. Don't be that guy who goes down into the comment section and there's like people who said they never knew about this thing or that thing or whatever, and don't go insulting them. Like, I've had a couple of comments like that already, and please don't be that guy. Don't be the guy who goes down into the comments and says everyone with more than 1% IQ knew 100% of these on their first hour playing. No, like by all means say that you knew all of them, and that is good for you, but just don't be insulting people, please. Alright, now I got that out of the way with, because that has happened in a couple of these videos, so I just want to get that out of the way with. But moving on now into 5th place, and sometimes public order can be difficult to manage, and food can be difficult to manage as well, so sometimes it's just better to exterminate a population, like destroying the full land, and then colonising it yourself and building it up like that. It's more expensive, but if you've got the money, then I think it's definitely worth it. Places to do this are, for example, in Africa with some of the desert kingdoms, where you don't have that much food. It's just better to wipe out the land and then build it again fresh, because you can't really damage the fertility of these settlements, really. Number 4 is sort of 2 specific points for hordes. Now, I didn't like playing the hordes when I started, but that's because I was playing them wrong. You've got to play the role play a little bit. So let's say you're playing as the Huns. Now, I didn't like it because my thought was that I am here to build an empire. But Attila Total War, it puts a spin on the Total War franchise. And when you play the Huns, you've got to destroy. And of course I knew that, but I didn't play it because of that. So my advice is, if you're struggling for a faction to play as in Attila Total War, play the Huns, but play it as a roleplay campaign. Don't be playing to be richest, don't be playing, I guess, for fun, don't be playing to be the strongest empire or for an achievement or something like that. Play it as a roleplay and have your mission to just be annoying. Do as much damage as possible, and I enjoyed this campaign so much more. Point 2 of this is, I only thought there were 2 factions in Attila Total War. East and Western Roman Empire are too big, so I never played those. I'm never interested in desert kingdoms, and I didn't like the other horde factions like the Ostrogoths, the Visigoths, all of those. I didn't like them because I didn't like having to create your own homeland. So I only saw the game as having 2 factions, Saxons and Franks, and for a while I hated Attila Total War for this. But one thing I wish I knew earlier was that these factions are actually fun, but you just got to put some time into it at the start to actually carve out a new homeland, and it creates that story, it creates that sort of roleplay element, and that's what Attila Total War does well. This is a very weird one, I know, but with Attila Total War, I wish that early on I would have tried something different and actually tried these campaigns out, rather than just assuming they're going to be bad. What a weird one, I know, that's such a weird point, but I can see it in my head, I hope you can understand it too. Point 3 is about how to use the barricade mechanic. Now you're probably only going to get one in a settlement, and what I used to do is I'll just put a barricade, and I saw them as being a speed bump. That was it, just a speed bump, slow them down, just for a few seconds or whatever, until they knock them down and then break through. But that's not how I use them now. What I learnt is that archers, or any missile unit, when you put them on a barricade, they fire their weapon faster. And I believe there's like a few other buffs for missile units when you got them on the barricades. Okay, so that's of course good, but there's another point added onto this. Now, to kill armoured units, the best way to do this is to use heavy shot, as that has higher armour piercing. But the problem with heavy shot is it takes longer to reload, or reset your bow and get a second shot in. However, if you're on the barricade, then that takes away that extra time, so all of a sudden you've got archers with just stronger arrows if you set it to heavy shot. So get an archer on a barricade, set him to heavy shot mode, and then once the heavy armoured unit is trying to break the barricade, then they can shoot at him, and they do so much more damage on the heavily armoured units. And of course we've got the faster fire rate as well, so you get no weakness, it's all just a much more powerful form of archer. Which I think is a really interesting mechanic. A lot of people don't like barricades, but you can really use them. 1 or 2 archer squads on them, and your enemy have heavy infantry. You can usually wipe out 2 squads, and that's firing into their front. Like, you don't have to worry about getting onto the flank to shoot them in the back to do more damage. You can do the same amount of damage into the front of them with the heavy shot and if they're attacking the barricade. Overall, very useful, and this could have really been handy in my first Western Roman Empire campaign. Point 2. The value of trade goods. If you're in a settlement and you can build dyes or wheat, don't take up that spot on something dumb like sewers or farms, or, well, they're not dumb, but don't waste that spot. Actually invest into the dyes, the farms, the wheat, the olives, the gold, whatever it is. Invest a slot into that, get those resources. Why? Because then a faction is more likely to sign a trade agreement with you. So yeah, it's not just, when it comes to diplomacy and trying to get a trade agreement, it's not just all about how much they like you. That is a big part, but by having more trade goods and more unique trade goods, they're more likely to accept, they're more likely to give you a lot of money for it. Of course, you're also going to make a lot more money from this, and if they've accepted this trade rights agreement, then your diplomacy with them is going to get better and they're going to be less likely to attack. So by building more trade buildings, you can form sort of like a trade empire, and you can get really good relations with neighbouring powers because of this. And that's something we don't see in the other Total Wars. Usually trade rights mean next to nothing, but in this game, building trade buildings can actually help with your diplomacy, not just money, which I really like, in quite an extreme way as well. My final point about trade is don't produce too much of one thing. Let's say you're producing 20 olives, and you're playing as Western Rome, you've got a trade rights agreement with Eastern Rome, you're producing 20 olives. 15 of those olives are going to the Eastern Roman Empire. Okay, you've got 5 left. And then you sign a trade agreement with the Franks, they'll take the other 5. And then you've got 0 olives. That's fine. However, don't be in a position where, let's say it's the same again, but you've got 60 olives. 15 olives are going to the Eastern Roman Empire, and you've got 45 olives left. Now, if you're not trading those olives, you're not making money from them, so then why spend thousands building up a building that's going to give you another 20 olives on top of that, like an improvement onto the olive building? There may be other advantages of that building, of course, but overall, it's really good to have a variety of trade resources, but you've also got to watch them to make sure you don't go overboard and have too much, otherwise you're just wasting your money upgrading these and you're never actually going to sell them, so then it's sort of pointless in a way. So yeah, really watch your trade. There's a lot of interesting stuff in there and it's really fun to work around. And in first place, I wish I knew this a very long time ago from my first Let's Play, but I didn't because it was very hidden, and there's actually wonders in Attila Total War. Like Rome Total War wonders, they've made it into Attila Total War as well. I actually noticed this on my last campaign, Eastern Roman Empire. It was about 8 months ago, or maybe a year ago now. That was the last time I played Attila. That was the campaign when I noticed them. It was sometime near the end as well, and I just wish that I knew about them before. It's something interesting to look into, and it helps direct your campaign, it helps explain parts of the campaign, and there's always something satisfying about capturing a wonder. So these settlements that I've been capturing with great wonders, I hadn't been thinking about them before. I'd just been capturing them, moving on, not thinking about the wonder. But in that time, if I knew about them, I would be getting some excitement about capturing the wonder, knowing my campaign is going to be slightly easier, like you get with Rome Total War. But I didn't know about it, and so I didn't have that extra bit of fun that I would have now if I was to take those wonders. Here's a map of all of them. The reason why you may not know it, or the reason why it took me so long, is because you can see the wonder all the way down at the bottom left of the screen once you click on a settlement, and it's in this really small icon that you can barely see. If the settlement has a wonder, it would show up there, and it will also show you what it actually does. There's some really interesting ones as well in here. I won't go over all of them because I want to make a video on these wonders at some point, but some of them, let's go for some of them, let's see. For example, if you take Rhodes, you will have the ruins of a Colossus, and this increases your naval recruitment capacity by +1. You get increased campaign movement and line of sight by holding Mount Argos, or however it's pronounced, which is in Anatolia by the way. The Oracle provides +1 public order and resistance to occupation. Stonehenge helps with research, helps solve the public order penalty due to the presence of other religions. So yeah, that's a really good one if you've got a load of other religions in your empire. Take Stonehenge, that lowers the public order penalties by 20%, really good. Yeah, and there's lots of interesting wonders here. How many are there in total? 15 I think. So yeah, if you want to know about all of those, make sure you subscribe, as I'll be going through those in a future video someday. Their uses, what they do, where they are, and what empire would be best for them. Stuff like that, could be interesting. But overall, that's it for this video. 6 things that I wish I knew about Attila Total War much earlier. And as I said, you may know all of these, and by all means comment that you do, good for you, but please don't call other people stupid, or me stupid for taking a while to figure this stuff out. We all play Total War differently, we all play Total War at different rates, but still, if you have learnt one, then I'm happy to hear it. I've been playing Attila Total War for thousands of hours until I discovered some of this stuff, and it does really make your campaigns much more interesting. If you have learnt something, please do like, subscribe, and share with someone else you think may be interested. I've been MELKOR, hope to see you in the next one, and goodbye.